Welcome back to Big Red Rant after a couple of weeks, definitely longer than we meant to be away. Gary, you got abducted by aliens and they just let you off the ship. How was that experience?
Surprisingly pleasant.
Shit. I see, and your bottom parts are all in working order still. So Gary was sick. We think he had COVID for the second time, but it still kicked his butt. Sleeping, narcolepsy, that sort of thing. But we got a much needed win in the meantime. Indiana, who was 3-1, I thought they were going to be a tougher challenge, but they came in and we handled our business. What, if anything, stood out in Mickey's first win?
I would say the mental toughness, or the not wavering mentally throughout the course of the game. Both he and Bush talked a lot before the game about such an emphasis on guys knowing where to be and being set before the play was snapped by Indiana because they ran such an up-tempo offense. They did a great job at that. Not every play was perfect, obviously, but guys weren't caught off guard, out of position, pre-snap at least. And then one of the biggest things that stood out to me, not only of the course of that game, but potentially throughout Mickey's tenure at least, was that Purdy was in there in that sack fumble for the touchdown. That is more significant of a play than previous games where it just comes unraveled. And I thought when that happened, the momentum clearly shifted to Indiana. Things could have gone off the rails and they kind of weathered the storm. Other crazy things didn't start happening. You didn't start having guys get out of position or, you know, a lot of real obvious errors or missed assignments on either side of the ball. They just weathered the storm, kept grinding, stuck to what they came in trying to do. And ultimately, when the momentum switched back, we were able to pull away. And don't get me wrong, it was an ugly win. There was a lot of penalties. Mickey talked about that, where certain penalties are unacceptable, but when you're going to be aggressive, some are going to happen. There's just nothing you can do about it. And I agree with him. But I mean, the penalties were up there. There were, Casey Thompson missed some open guys. There was still some gaps on the offensive line. I thought the offensive line played almost 100% better than they had played previously. I don't mean a flawless offensive line. Don't get it twisted. I'm saying compared to how bad they've been previously, the defense wasn't missing gaps as much. They weren't missing tackles as much. We averaged almost 14 missed tackles a game going into that game. And I think there was like 6 missed tackles the entire game. So, I mean, a lot of improvements on basic little things that needed to be fixed, not letting it come off the rails when, essentially the biggest play happened of that game, which in my opinion was the sack fumble for the touchdown. And they just grind out and weathered the storm. And I think that all kind of just is under the umbrella of mental toughness that he's clearly trying to instill in the team.
I know you don't spend too much time on Twitter, but there was quite the confusion as far as what was going on with Casey Thompson coming out and Purdy coming in for him. How did you read the situation? Do you think it was just like a punishment or like a get your head right situation?
Now I think it was a get your head right situation. At the time, I thought maybe he got hurt because he had gotten hit. They showed him on the sideline when Purdy was in there and they were like retaping his left wrist. That's kind of weird. I'm trying to kind of sort that out. But then later, obviously, when they talked about it, I like seeing Mickey see that his guy needed to calm down or maybe get a different perspective of things, but also kind of put it in his head. You're not irreplaceable. We want you. You're clearly the guy. You're the better guy. We want you in there. But if you're going to miss reads and you're going to hold the ball too long and you're going to take this already kind of struggling offensive line that's playing way better than it has all year long and make it even harder on them, you can stand over here next to me and watch somebody else do it. If that don't work, I'll go to somebody else. Like, I like seeing that. I like that he's being held accountable, and I like seeing that he's able to handle it. He's mature enough and tough enough to handle it. I don't know if you saw when Whipple was ripping his ass. He wasn't arguing back, didn't have his head down and walking off like he couldn't believe he was getting yelled at. I mean, he took it, obviously absorbed it, and went back out later. But initially, to answer your question, I thought maybe he was banged up and he just needed like a drive or something off. But then hearing what Mickey said, I like that, man. He has a finite amount of games to try and keep this job. And it would be very understandable if he's like, I don't care who does what. I'm putting the best guys out there because I need to try and keep this job. And he's throwing that to the wind, going, man, maybe this guy's a drop down from him, but that's not what's important. He really is, it seems like, doing things long-term, from all the way from recruiting, for the future, like he's going to be here, to things like that, like still developing your guy. That's part of the development, pull them out and make them see what they're not seeing there, or what they're not, or have that accountability as, form of punishment of like, all right, man, you didn't earn this next drive. You sit over here. And even with the turnover, he didn't back up on it. Like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. He stood by it, and it lets everybody else at every other position know, he's not messing around. Like, you're going to do what you're expected to do. do, or you can sit on the side and watch and get another shot at it. If not, there's other guys that'll come in. We saw a lot of new faces, especially on the defensive side. So, I mean, I like seeing that, man. Holding people accountable, but also having actual legit competition throughout the week and even during games is going to make everybody better.
Overall, to me, man, this was just a fun game. It was nice to see us in a bit of a shootout, a higher scoring game, but then still to be able to take control and not relinquish it. It was a nice wrinkle for me as a football fan in general, as a Bears and a Huskers fan. It's just I don't get a lot of that. Do you not feel like we came away clean in that game? Because to me, this is probably our best win, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting to me because I've heard and read people on both sides of the argument, and they're both justified. You know, you can say exactly kind of what you said. There can be a lot of hype that Mickey's turning the ship around and things are going in the right direction. And there's people already clamoring for him to be named the next head coach. But you can also look the other side that, you know, like you're saying, shootout. They got a sack fumble that accounted for one of their touchdowns, like that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a drive they put together, did whatever. We had a punt block for a touchdown, which is a quick score. We had the Reimer interception that set them, you know, gave them the ball ready to score. They scored shortly after that. So, I mean, there was definitely some big plays on both sides, but as far as like either a high-powered offense or kind of mediocre defense, I didn't get that feel so much. It was a little bit of back and forth. But, you know, you can look at, it was an ugly win, but a win's a win. And Nebraska wasn't getting ugly wins. Everything ugly was a loss, right? So, I mean, that's definitely a big hurdle they've jumped. But Indiana, put the record aside because the first 3 games, whatever. But I mean, they allowed 20-some points to Iowa. That was one of their losses. I don't think Iowa scored 27 points every other game combined. You know, I mean, I'm just being facetious. But, and then, you know, we do what we do with them. It's just, it's not an impressive win in my mind as far as opponent is concerned. It's an impressive win for Nebraska's sake, you know, because I feel they cleared some mental hurdles.
I completely agree. It feels like they cleared mental hurdles. Just getting something done that you're supposed to get done that you weren't getting done before. You don't need it to be any clearer than that.
Yeah, and being a Big Ten team, you know, it's like they've been absolutely horrible against every team in the Big Ten, East, West, good records, bad records, doesn't matter. And getting that win is not to be in hindsight so much, but you could argue if they played that, which I don't think it was great. There's plenty of things wrong with what happened in that game that they have to go back on film to see and that they can work on in practice. But I think every single person that understands football, even marginally, would look at that game if they've seen all the other games and go, yeah, that's the cleanest they played on both sides of the ball all year. I think if you play like that against Northwestern, you're 2-0 in the Big Ten. You know, I mean, you should really only have that one loss to Oklahoma if you play all your games like you played that Saturday, you know, last Saturday. But obviously you can't do that. So it's just, if they can keep gradually building on that, then yeah, I think the super optimistic people are going to be closer to being right. If it's just because it was Indiana and now that they're traveling and it's a short week and they're super excited on a win and they take a step back, now the naysayers and the people, it was just a bad Indiana team without their top 2 receivers. It's going to trend more looking like they're going to be the ones right. But it's just like everything else, man, it's a wait and see. But I think coming off of that game, aside of being greedy and expecting like a huge blowout, you couldn't really ask for much more other than what we saw in the improvements.
Out of a technicality, we are tied for first in the Big Ten West.
In the West, right.
There's a lot of excitement about that. Personally, I think it's silly. I think we have way bigger things to worry about. Come on, everybody's 1-1. I understand that means that, hey, we're not in as bad of a position as we thought we were in, maybe. But I don't think it's anything to be hyped about. What say ye?
It's kind of the same thing as I said, referring to the win on Indiana, is there's arguments to both sides of it. To me personally, Nebraska needs to worry about overcoming Nebraska before they worry about any opponents, anybody else in the Big Ten, East, West, and different. They get in their way so often that they need to take the fact that they got in their way in some areas on Saturday, but still managed to get out of their way and win. And they need to keep building on that to where they're not ever beating themselves anymore. Then they can start worrying about beating opponents. That's just what I see. That's what I look for now after the last few years. They took a step in that direction. And yeah, I mean, you beat a bad Indiana team. You also lost to a bad Northwestern team. You know, so like that's where I agree with you. Like, let's pump the brakes on the expectations. But On the other side, Iowa's not what we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. Wisconsin definitely isn't. They fired their coach mid-season. Nobody saw that coming before the season started. There doesn't seem to be a real powerhouse. Minnesota, I think we thought was going to have a better record by the time we met up with them. And I mean, that could be their one loss. Who knows? But it's just things aren't setting up the way everybody anticipated at the beginning of the season. From our angle, from other teams' angles. Like I said, with Wisconsin and Iowa are prime examples. So, I mean, things are possible. And if we continue to build and gradually get better, yeah, maybe a few weeks from now we can talk about that a little more. But like I said, for me right now, I just want to see Nebraska consistently stay out of their own way in the middle, throughout games, and show that it's going to legit come down to if they're playing a team better than them or not. And then can that team stay clean enough to beat us like they should because they're better? I don't want to see Nebraska playing up or down to talent. I want to figure out what Nebraska's identity is, see them play to that. And then you'll be able, in my opinion, be able to gauge that a lot better and kind of adjust or tamper what your expectations are as far as that goes. But people saying that there's a chance to win the Big Ten West are 100% right. People saying pump the brakes, I tend to agree with them a little more, but we'll see how it goes, man.
The Mickey hype, it's getting real after that first win. We all love Mickey. Did this win do anything, or is that way too early to tell as far as him getting his foot stuck in the door and not letting it close on him being the head coach for who knows how long?
No, I mean, I think his foot was already in the door, or Trev wouldn't have given him the reins, essentially. Like when he put him in as interim head coach, he made it clear without being asked. He was asked if anybody else was let go. And then he added on his own, no, at this point they haven't. He has full control over who stays and who goes. And since then, he's made the defensive coordinator change, obviously. He's still recruiting. There's no question how well the guy can recruit. I don't think there's any question how well he can develop players. And you and I, we did that video back when he signed with us about, is he potentially the next guy? And a lot of people got mad. You're pushing Frost out and blah, blah. And it's like, no, man, but I mean, you always want to be playing chess, right? Instead of, you don't want to be caught playing checkers in that level of football. So it's like, we kind of talked then, and I don't think either one of us thought, especially that early in the season, it might come through, but we kind of all figured and assumed that he would be the guy if Frost were to get canned during the season. And I think this is why he was put into that position. I mean, the only thing lacking from him is legit head coaching experience at this level. Everything else he's proven he can do, from coaching individually to handling his position, recruiting, developing players, all those things. The players obviously love him. You saw they were acting like he just won a national championship after that game in the locker room. I don't think any 1 or 2 games is going to win or lose him the job. But if he can go from where we were the first 4 weeks to what we looked like last week and gradually keep building, or at least stay consistent on that scale, go up a little bit, improve a little bit, plateau out, not have a lot of dips, definitely don't steadily fall, then I think it's going to be really hard not to, I think it's going to be really hard not to give him the job or have him keep the job if things continue to improve. And it doesn't have to be drastic improvements, just gradually keep improving the culture more so than just this specific team, because he's going to have a high recruiting class, or who they're after. At least he's going to keep those guys. A lot of guys, all but one, are still sticking around. A lot of it has to do with him, and he seems to be getting more out of the guys. So I mean, for me, it's going to be hard to justify getting rid of him if he continues on this trend, this upward trend. And that's also when we've done these coaching breakdowns, I don't put a whole lot of value into any of these guys getting thrown out, because like we said before, we're going to hear every name there is, and we do a video and do a breakdown when it seems like there's more legitimacy or more hype around one guy or the other, and some people get upset like we're undervaluing him. Some people, no, I don't want him, they've got whoever they want in mind, and like that's all cool, but it's just, I don't think anybody out there matters if he continues to improve.
Special shout out to Anthony Grant for being an absolute powerhouse stud, future NFL running back, and Trey Palmer, big game. He's such a great target, and it's just so fun as a Husker. It was nice last year with Toure. It's just so nice to have what you feel like are star players on your team and to watch them succeed. So I guess shout out to Whipple for knowing how to use his weapons.
Yeah, to me, shout out to the offensive line. Like, again, I don't think they were a great, amazing, like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm seeing offensive line. But a lot of the whiffs and gaffes and just cluelessness that we saw previously seemed to, for the most part, be gone. They were a serviceable offensive line that let the athletes and the guys that everybody hypes up in the offseason when we add showcase their talents and do their things. Like I was really impressed with that. What did you think about the amount of usage of Grant? Like I'm sure you liked it, but they kept exchanging every other drive, Grant, Allen. And then when Allen went down for the season, they're like, we're not worried about it. Irvin's more than capable of taking that role. Yant can handle it. You know, they keep talking about Ramir Johnson, which he's on the back of a milk carton somewhere. But they say that, and then they turn around and it's almost exclusively Anthony Grant the entire game. Do you think that has more to do with Mickey going, I don't care, man. He's the guy. He's going to play. Not worried about him getting hurt. He's durable. This is what star running backs do. They take 80% of the carries. Or do you think it's more of there was going to be a significant drop off if he went with Yant or Irvin? I know they put Yant in at the goal line and he got his touchdown, and I know Irvin played a little bit, but neither one of them two combined didn't have as many carries as AJ Allen.
I think this is a situation where Anthony Grant is just so damn special that it doesn't make sense to not let him have every single carry that he feels he has the wind to perform. Mm-hmm. If he wants a break, he can come out. If he feels he can go, he's getting the carry. It's no disrespect to Yant. It's absolutely no disrespect to Ramir Johnson or Gabe Irvin. Terrific backs. He is special.
Yeah.
So we're in a unique situation where we have a star. And I just think Mickey is smart enough and he wants to keep this job long term. So he's coaching to win. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, he's not coaching scared for sure. Like he talked about when one of the times Casey Thompson got banged up and he said something, he's like, I'm good to go. He's like, all right, go in there. It happened to a couple of guys on defense and things like that. And it's like, I like that more old school mentality of you can play hurt all day long. If you're injured, obviously we're not going to tell you to go in. We're going to try and keep you out so that you're back to being healthy. But this is D1 football. If you're going to get banged up, you're going to get hurt. Who wants to play? It's not this modern era. And I think a lot of the previous coaching staff on both sides of the ball, there was a lot of not fully utilizing guys because of that. Like, we want to keep them fresh. We don't want to get them hurt. Not tackling in practice. All these things, like almost coaching scared. And by doing that, whether obviously you don't mean to, you're unintentionally handcuffing guys to an extent. Where Mickey's like, all right, man, we practice all week for this. Go play. You're hurt? Okay, are you hurt to where you don't want to play? Or you got to come out? Or you got to go? Okay, go. You know what I mean? Like, there's not this messing around. You're going to lose that spot because you lost it or somebody took it from you, not because he's going to hold you back and put somebody else in under the guise of I don't want guys getting hurt. I like seeing that. I like hearing what he said about that in the post game deal. I wanted to see what you thought about it because I know a lot of people are talking about what's obvious that so-called stable of backs we had isn't that good. When the true freshman goes down, other guys aren't getting the same carries that they were getting. But I think even if AJ Allen was healthy, he would have for sure got more carries, but I don't think he would have gotten as many carries as he had been getting. And I'm just a hunch. I have nothing to go off of. People might think I'm crazy saying that, but I just think that Mickey is more along the lines of like, who's the guy? Who's the guy at receiver? Who's the guy on the line? Who's the guy on defense? Who's the quarterback? Every position. Like,
from what I understand, that's how Whipple does his offense. He gets his playmakers the ball ad nauseum. Yeah. You're my guy. You're getting it.
Yep.
And that's what you're seeing with Trey Palmer as well, getting so many targets and receptions.
Yeah, it needs to be because, I mean, he gets open, man. And there's been times where my only real two knocks on Casey this season so far have been, I feel like he underthrows a lot. And I don't mean underthrow like guys have to dive or come back to it, but like they have to break stride. Right. Or they have to jump in the middle of their route to get the ball. A lot of it to me is just because he's throwing it a little late to him. I think if he gets it quicker, he can get out front. And he was doing that. The big touchdown was a 71, 73-yard Palmer pass. He led him perfect. He was able to just keep going. He broke stride a little bit, was able to keep going. He's getting open. So it's like, stop missing wide open guys. And I understand you're under duress as much as he is. You're not constantly keeping your eyes downfield. There's a lot of looking around and feeling like you got to protect yourself and run. But in doing so, you're missing some open guys. And then also when guys have a little bit of a beat or an edge on the defender, and you underthrow it even just a little bit, now the guy's catching it as he's getting teed off on instead of getting some nice, yards after the catch. So I thought he fixed a lot of that game. And when he missed Palmer on the one and they pulled him out, and that's when Whipple was ripping his ass. But like I said, he took it like a man. He went back in, and I thought he played really well.
It's always great to get a win, Gary. And we've got Rutgers coming up next. Stay tuned for our Rutgers preview. We'll see you guys then, and then after Friday's game, we'll probably go live for a post-game reaction. We'll see you guys then. Go Big Red.